We have a viewer request for two fantastic Marvel villains to go head to head, and surprisingly, these two characters have never gone against each other in the comics, and I don't know if they've even met, but Doctor Doom and Apocalypse, who would win? If you ask anyone, name top five Marvel villains, I guarantee most people are gonna put both of these characters on the list, and if not, absolutely one of them. Today, we're going to definitively prove who would win, Doctor Doom or Apocalypse. Starting off with Doctor Doom, he is Victor Von Doom, the current ruler of Latveria. He does rule as a dictator, but he started off just born to a witch and the son of a failed scientist. And from an early age, he showed interest in the arcane arts. And then after his mother passed, he dove deep into the mystic arts as well as science in some way to help bring her back or at least communicate with her. And this put him into a collision course with Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, who is his arch enemy. And they went to school together where Doom focused on trying to find a way to contact his mother. That was his big science project, while Reed was more focused on more of aeronautics. Due to a miscalculation that Doom had in his machine that Reed did point out, Doom's machine exploded, leaving him scarred. And depending on the iteration of the character, the scars vary. Sometimes just a minor cut, but he just can't handle the slight imperfection. Sometimes he scars himself by putting like a white hot mask against his face. Other times it's the machine. And sometimes it's just all in his head. That just plays a lot into his ego. But every time after some event where Reed is right and Doom is wrong, Doom goes and seeks out the Tibetan monks and starts heavily training in the mystic arts. And honestly, he rivals Doctor Strange and is one of the contenders for the Sorcerer Supreme, and even has been the Sorcerer Supreme at a couple of points in the Marvel timeline. And from there, he's become the king of Latveria, where he does rule. We talked about this before, though he is a dictator, he is still a very fair and just ruler, which I know sounds a bit odd, but he is. And he's done several things over the course of his history. He's taken the Beyonders' powers, taken the Silver Surfer's powers. It's a pretty heavy theme there. He has sacrificed his old lover Valyria for a suit that enhances his mystical powers and was actually made from her own skin. He has his powers sourced from the Hazareth 3, and he just does absolutely anything and everything to gain more and more power. Going a bit into Doctor Doom's abilities, as I said before, he is a master of the arcane arts. He is a current Sorcerer Supreme candidate and has been and was very recently and has been known to triumph over Doctor Strange. I would say more often than not. He has trapped him several times, and Doctor Strange has usually only gotten out due to the help of the Fantastic Four. He is able to cast a wide variety of spells, shoot arcane blasts, put up shields, able to do a bunch of spell casting, reverse spells, teleportation, summon demons, dimensional travel. He's able to time travel. He's able to heal himself. He's able to banish others, which he's used against several people, including Doctor Strange, where his astral self was banished. And he's able to absorb other powers as well as elemental manipulation. And that's pretty much just with his sorcery. And each time he needs a power up, it usually is with the arcane arts, and they give him something else with like new armor, or he just learns a new spell, steals someone's powers, gets just a new relic that puts him seemingly one step ahead of the Fantastic Four. On top of that, besides some like minor psionic abilities that kind of stay and go just depending on the writer, he's also an incredible genius. He is so intelligent, and I feel like genius is tossed around in Marvel quite often, but he is the true definition of the word. He is a genius among geniuses, honestly. He is a vast intellect, and the only thing really getting in his way is just himself. he would be able to get away with so much more if he just let shit go. But given that a lot easier said than done. He is also an expert martial artist. He's in peak human condition, and he has a very indomitable will. He thinks so highly of himself and he's so willful, he's able to just kind of shrug off, or after some effort, just shrug off psionic attacks. Namely, this has been used with Emma Frost, where he's able to just exert his will and she's just not able to control him or read his thoughts. And as I said before, he is the ruling leader of Latveria and he is extremely charismatic, but most importantly, he has diplomatic immunity, which means he can cause all the chaos he wants in America and he pretty much gets off with it scot-free and he's able to come back in another issue. He's also extremely proficient in a lot of different weaponry, but namely swords. He's an expert swordsman. This also just has to do with like growing up in a European country, being his own monarch, and just wanting to be overly prepared. That is one thing about Doctor Doom in a nutshell. He will make sure he is overly prepared. He will study, he'll sit down and do the work and learn things. If there's something he doesn't know, he will learn things. So he doesn't have to rely on other people. And on top of those powers, as I said before, he does have a variety of different armors, but in particular with his power armor, the one that's more commonly used, it gives him enhanced strength, enhanced durability, as well as it has a video communicator. He's able to shoot no longer just energy blasts, but also shoot electrical blasts that are powered by the suit, just in case he's all tapped out. He does have this reservoir as well, because the suit, and honestly, and I think, in my opinion, is a little bit cooler than the Iron Man suit, just because of how it enhances him and what he's able to do with it. I just think it's a little bit more than just a, at this point, generic Iron Man suit. He's able to fly with it, shoot concussive blasts. This is how he's able to time travel, which again, it plays into his intellect. He built a time travel device. That's about it for his powers. Now, diving into weaknesses, his ego is massive. For as smart as he is just has as big of an ego. It rivals Tony Stark. He just can't let shit go. And if Reed says one thing, he has to do the opposite. He has a sense of superiority he just cannot get over. And every single time, rather than him being the less powerful or less smart person, it's just his ego that gets in the way. Like 99% of the time, that's just all that happens.
I get the pleasure of talking about Apocalypse, which is one of my favorite X-Men villains. Apocalypse, otherwise known as En Sabanur. He made his first appearance in not even an X-Men comics. It was X Factor #5 in 1986. Damn, that was a long time ago. And I've been intrigued by Apocalypse ever since. I like the look of Apocalypse. I really love the voice that they gave him in the X-Men animated series.
Yeah.
But what really caught my eye was the look and this anytime something can't die, I'm always intrigued by it. You know, they've been trying to kill Apocalypse, get rid of him for centuries, and they can't. That caught my eye. I've been a fan of the dude ever since, and he's got immense powers. I would dare say that he's amongst the most powerful villains in Marvel.
Yeah.
And we're gonna dive into a little bit about Apocalypse. So as I said, his real name is Ensabanur, and he's a very ancient mutant. There's a little bit of debate. It goes back and forth about whether he's the first mutant or not. But Apocalypse is an ancient mutant. He was born long, long time ago, and his family discarded him because of his, well, the way he looked. He's essentially a gray blue baby. So they just discarded him. And some nomads that found him, they actually raised him. And this is where Apocalypse really gets his whole, way of thinking. They raised him in the very much a survival of the fittest type of way, where, only the strong survive, which is where later on we get Age of Apocalypse, where he really is, he wants the strongest to survive, and he'll put the strongest against the weakest and, tries to eliminate through that way. Apocalypse is also responsible for the creation of Dracula, of course, in Marvel Comics, and Sinister, which comes back and bites him in the ass, as we all know, years later, because Sinister's always trying to one up him. He's like that Sith Lord, kind of the rule of two. And Sinister, as we all know, has an infatuation with Jean Grey and Scott Summers and creates Cable. He infects him with that technovirus, and Cable and later on gets cloned, and there's Strive, and both Strive and Cable try to take down Apocalypse. And Cable actually could if he wasn't infected with that technovirus. So, Apocalypse has a headache that he himself created by, altering Sinister even further, because Sinister had already manipulated his DNA a lot. But let's get into some of the powers that Apocalypse has. Apocalypse is a shapeshifter, pretty much like Mystique or like Morph, but like Mystique, uses it a lot different. Apocalypse disguises himself as anyone and anyone. He's also merged himself with celestial technology, which only has amplified his powers. Apocalypse now has it, and as Griff says, depending on which writer, but Apocalypse essentially has the ability to adapt to every mutant power and utilize it to his will. He has complete control of his molecular structure. He can, shrink himself teeny tiny or grow himself really big, which is one of the things that I didn't like about X-Men Apocalypse the movie. He only grew big in Xavier's mind. I thought that was so lame. I really wanted to see a giant apocalypse. It's something we saw in the animated
Yeah.
series, some things we see in the comics numerous times, and I really wanted to see that, and it didn't happen, and that really made me sad. But in the comics and in the animated series, this is something that Apocalypse is able to do. And as I said, he merged with celestial technology. Apocalypse's blood, it can heal other mutants, but it's deadly to humans. I mean, if a human gets infected with Apocalypse's blood, they're dead. And it could also give back the powers of a depowered mutant, which I'm still trying to make sense of that in my head. And we've seen him do it, to Archangel, to Angel, aka Warren Worthington, where he turned him into Archangel. Essentially, Angel lost his wings and he was given techno organic wings. But not only that, his powers were enhanced by Apocalypse, which is when he turned him into Four Horsemen Death. And later on, he does it to Gambit in the comics. And I'm still waiting to see that in the animated
It's gonna be
series to see
so
how it's
good.
going to do. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Apocalypse can project any number of different projectiles. Their power ranges depending on, believe it or not, how angry he is, the types of combat that he is. He's highly skilled in combat. Again, he was raised as a natural born warrior by the people that took the nomads that took him in. And as Griff says, and I at this point it only makes me laugh when we say this, but Apocalypse has a high level of intelligence. We keep saying that, but it's true with a lot of these villains. He's not just this immortal big bad guy. He's very intelligent. He's highly skilled in science, biology, chemistry, and we know this from the comics because Apocalypse is always tinkering with his own biology and with others. He's just
Hmm.
trying to improve and make better and better and better. He's not just some guy who's super strong. And he does have super strength. That is also one of his other abilities. He has some psionic abilities. He's got telepathy, and he's a deadly foe. This is what makes him
Yeah.
one of the X-Men's most deadly foes. Is also, and I'm not 100% certain on this. I did my research as Griff and I always do. Apocalypse likes to think of himself as a deity, which he's not. So essentially, he is immortal. It's not like written in stone. It does really depend on the writer, but essentially, Apocalypse's natural mutation is he's got longevity. So he lives thousands of freaking years anyway. And then on top of the fact that he merged with celestial technology and that, he has this chamber that he goes into every 1,000 years. And also he can transfer his consciousness into, that's not bullshit. That's not just from X-Men Apocalypse, the movie. He can actually do that. And of course, he chooses very specific mutants as to, he's not going to do that into me or to Griffin because we're just humans. But he can choose who he's going to transfer his consciousness into.
Hmm.
Essentially, that could, also just make him live much, much longer than any of us ever will. He's well into the future, and he's fighting Cable, and he comes back into our age. I can't tell you which is my favorite Apocalypse era. I like them all. I like reading about him in Egypt. I like reading about, and essentially all ancient cultures, of course, in Marvel lore, um, have dealt or have been affected by Apocalypse at some point, and I dig that. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. So those are his powers and abilities, and as with everyone, we have to get into some of his weaknesses. And his weaknesses are he's not as arrogant as most villains are, but he does have weaknesses. He has been taken down by powerful, very powerful telepaths. Like, yes, of course, Phoenix Force would obliterate Apocalypse, but
Yes.
Phoenix Force would obliterate fucking, I think,
Everything.
almost everything. But also Jean Grey, peak Jean Grey can take down Apocalypse. Peak Jean Grey, like her not like bleeding from her nose when she's levitating the coffee pot. I'm talking about like, because she is extremely powerful when she's at her peak. Emma Frost has taken him down. She is most people think of her as a bimbo, but Emma Frost, like real Emma Frost, she's extremely powerful. She's up there with Charles Xavier telepath powers. She can take him. Of course, he's petrified of Charles. That's why he wants to get rid of him because Charles can take him. And Psylocke has been known to help in taking him down. And also, of course, if you put these powerful telepaths with Cable together, Apocalypse is screwed. So, given what we know now about powers, weaknesses, longevity, all of that stuff, now it's time for us to tell you guys who we think would win between Doctor Doom and Apocalypse and Sabanu.
I think pretty much hands down, it's Apocalypse. While I think Doctor Doom is immensely capable and can beat everyone in his own right, he has to steal other people's powers to become godlike. Apocalypse is already just a god. He's not like
He's a god
Hercules
like
or
Loki's a god.
yeah, like he's pretty much just a god. He is one of the most powerful characters. And yeah, let's say Doom can take Apocalypse's powers. There are still, I think, several ways that Apocalypse can still take him down just due to his biology. I mean, we have his blood, we have just his longevity, just goes to sleep and is able to heal it and probably regain his powers from it, and then still be able to kick Doom's ass. And the first time that Doom took the Beyonder's powers in the first Secret Wars, he had some troubles controlling it, and that had to be wrested from him and had to be tricked because he kind of went a little crazy. And I think with Apocalypse's powers, they're a little bit different from the Beyonders, not on a cosmic level, but they are still a lot more. You have to be very in tune with yourself as well as the powers. I don't think Doom's gonna be able to use them. He's gonna be like accidentally just like morph himself into like a chicken or something, or grow a third arm. I think Apocalypse just is so versatile, practically immortal. He also has some arcane abilities that he will be able to not go toe to toe with Doctor Doom with, but will still at least be able to have some defenses against. And even if Doctor Doom was able to bind him or damage him, shifts right out of it. Because I mean, think about like Mr. Fantastic being able to stretch or manipulate his body. Apocalypse can do that on a much more detailed level with a plenty of more versatility with it that Doctor Doom just can't handle. Not at all. And while Apocalypse I don't think is as intelligent, I think his intelligence probably rivals or a little bit shy of, but he doesn't have that ego weighing him down. And pretty much in nearly every other category, maybe except for like hand-to-hand fighting, just Apocalypse Maxim every time.
I would even say in hand-to-hand fighting, Apocalypse has been around, and that's one of the things that, well, one of many things that he's got over Doom is how long he's been around and
Yeah,
the mastery of time that he's got. He's well into the, I don't know, what is it, 30, 49, something like that,
something like that.
even further out there. So just imagine how advanced his technology is, and
Yeah.
he can time travel. He can go in and out of time, and I
He doesn't
mean,
need machines to do what Doom has to use machines to do.
Doom, Apocalypse, Egypt Age. Okay, I could see
Okay,
that
yeah.
happening. But other than that, given the research we dove into, I just don't see it. Doom has his Doom bots, but Apocalypse has his four horsemen, and they're
Yeah.
deadly as all hell. And he's got legions. I mean, depending on which era, but if we're attacking him in an age of apocalypse, he's got legions and legions and legions of deadly ass warriors. He has had all the time in the world to study he could Batman Doom. He could travel through time and research, and that would be it. I mean, he's got talk about prep time. No one has prep time like Apocalypse. He's had centuries, thousands of years to do prep time on anyone and everyone. I'm not saying that Emma Frost is more powerful than Doom, but she is a telepath, and that does affect Apocalypse. So, but even at that, I mean, it's Emma Frost peak powers and
Yeah.
utilizing every bit of strength she's got to take down Apocalypse. And so, yeah, other than that, I just don't see it. Of course, Doom has been known to steal Silver Surfer's powers, and then I would say that
Even with
perhaps,
those, no, I don't even think he like
well,
even if he has
Silver Surfer's got cosmic power, and Apocalypse is.
the
I
co
would say that Apocalypse is the most dangerous Marvel villain on Earth. But when you get up there in space with all with Thanos and all that other stuff, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I think due to especially with being enhanced by the Exalted and the Celestials, that Apocalypse can definitely beat Silver Surfer and his cosmic powers. I think Beyonder and the Molecule Man will be a little bit different story if Doom did take those, since he now has reality altering powers. And Apocalypse, to my recollection, to my research, can't do anything
No,
about that. And
no,
that's where
no,
I think Doom would win. But that's happened twice, both time in Secret Wars. Although every other time, I think, even with Surfer, I think Apocalypse wins. Thank you guys so much for watching. Personally, when we got this request, I couldn't believe these two haven't met in comics, but let us know who you think wins between Apocalypse and Doctor Doom. If you enjoyed this video, go check out our most recent video in our Who Would Win series of Gambit versus Nightwing. And frankly, this that one's not even close.